there are so many Christian Zionists in this country.
Yes.
So in light of the conversation recently with Ted Cruz and others often invoking the Bible to justify unconditional support for Israel, even amid mass civilian killings in Gaza, how do we confront this misuse of Scripture, especially when it's used to silence Christians and Muslim voices calling for justice?
I mean, that's hard for me because I'm not religious, so I don't know how you could silence people on Scripture. However, I don't believe that they're using Scripture in the right way. Also, Jesus was a Palestinian.
The best part of that Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson interview is the biblical part, where Tucker just asked the obvious question, which is, when God was praising Israel, he wasn't praising the Netanyahu government and saying America needs to send bunker-busting bombs to Netanyahu. That wasn't the conversation at the burning bush. That wasn't the conversation at any point in biblical history. And it was just so, I don't know if you saw Dave DeCamp, who is with antiwar.com, which is a great website. He actually had the tweet of the week, the month, the year, when he replied to Ted Cruz, who was doubling down on Twitter saying, oh, of course, Tucker doesn't believe that Israel is the Israel of the Bible. And he said, if I rename my son Jesus, would you worship him? Like this idea that you just have a name and that must be the one from the Bible. But seriously, on your question, the simplest way to have this discussion is to first acknowledge the existence of Palestinian Christians. Right now, most people don't know that Palestinian Christians exist. Palestinian is synonymous with Arab, which is synonymous with Muslim, which is synonymous with all sorts of things. And I think we have to have that discussion. Christian Palestinians have been there at the forefront of this struggle, but the acknowledgement is not there, especially in this country. And it's amazing to see the hypocrisy of the Republican Party and the Christian evangelical wing that goes on and on about Christian persecution at home and abroad. They're always obsessed with like the war on Christmas. We can't say Merry Christmas. Yes, you can. Stop being children. And then they moan about Christians being killed everywhere, except in Gaza. They are the right-wing peps, right? They're like, oh, Christians are being oppressed in Yemen and Iraq, and all that, but not in Gaza. And I think we need to shame these people, although it's very hard to shame the shameless. But we need to try and shame these people on the issue of, if you don't care about Muslims, I always say when I talk about Gaza, unfortunately, I say this cynically, I'm like, oh, you don't care about all the mosques they destroyed. But what about when they sniped 2 Christian women in a church in cold blood, and the church came out and condemned it? What about that? And they've got nothing to say because ultimately it's not about religion. Racism is a very powerful drug, and they're Palestinian Christians. That's the problem. It's not the Christian part, it's the Palestinian part.